Hello and welcome to Pleasure Reading. I'm your host, Amelia Ruby, and this is a podcast about the pleasure of reading, where I share curated reading lists, author rankings, chats with my bookish friends, and more. If you too take pleasure in reading, I hope that you will subscribe and share this show with a friend. Cheers to your next best book. Hello, and welcome to Pleasure Reading, a podcast about the many joys of reading, where I, your host, Amelia Ruby, share curated reading lists as well as updates about what I have been reading for pleasure in the months and seasons of this year. Today, I am sharing an episode that is very on time for summer, at least for me. We are almost at the summer solstice in the Northern Hemisphere where I live in the US. And every year when we hit this time of year, it becomes swimsuit season for me. And when I was younger, that was a season that was fraught with big feelings and honestly a lot of self-loathing. I spent much of my formative years, my teens and my 20s, dieting and trying to look good in a bathing suit, trying to be hot for summer or cool for the summer, as Demi Lovato says. It was always frankly, just like an exercise in never liking how I looked and struggling so much with my self-image and just with like being a person with a body in the summer. That got way easier for me when I started reading about diet culture, when I learned about fat activism, and when I found my way toward the books that I am going to share with you today. So in this episode of Pleasure Reading, I am sharing 5 books to help you break up with diet culture just in time for swimsuit season. Or if you don't care about swimsuit season, just in time for the rest of your life. I want all of us to feel liberated and alive in our bodies. I want us to find pleasure in our embodied experience. And these books helped me get there, even in a very fat-phobic world. So let's get to the list, shall we, of my 5 books to help you break up with diet culture. The first book on this list is the one I recommend the absolute most. I highly, highly recommend getting your own copy, buying a couple, sharing them with friends, putting them in free little libraries. I have done all of those things with You Have the Right to Remain Fat by Virgie Tovar. This is a pocket-sized manifesto where Virgie shares her personal experience growing up in a fat body and how she learned to embrace her body instead of always trying to make it smaller. The chapter titles of this book really get at what it's all about, so I'd love to read you a few of them. She starts with What Are Fat Phobia and Diet Culture? Restriction Doesn't Work, It's Not You. Dieting as a Survival Technique. Why Bros Heart Thinness, Heteromasculinity and Whiteness. Why Fat Phobia is the New Language of Classism and Racism. What Early Fat Activism Taught Me. In the Future, I'm Fat. And I Want Freedom. I particularly love the beginning of the chapter, I Want Freedom, and I'd love to read a tiny bit of it to you here. At the start of that chapter, Virgie writes this: For a long time, I wanted to lose weight more than I wanted absolutely anything else. I believed that life would begin later. I would wear a bikini later, I would be happy later, I would wear short shorts, go on dates, feel beautiful, wear bright pink lipstick later. I would travel the world, enjoy cupcakes, and smile with complete abandon in pictures later, when my cheeks were smaller and I didn't have a double chin. I would love myself later. I realize now that all those times I had said, I want to be thin, I actually meant, I want to be loved, I want to be happy, I want to be seen, I want to be free. We are taught that thin is synonymous with beauty, power, and love, but in fact, it is not. And we cannot starve our way into being loved or into being free. Virgie is such a talented writer, and it is not hyperbole to say that this book absolutely changed my life. It made clear to me that I could appreciate and even love my body as it was, and that I didn't have to keep dieting just to prove my worthiness to the people around me. I love the title, You Have the Right to Remain Fat. And throughout this book, Virgie brings such an intersectional lens, talking about body size, about race, about gender, about sexuality in her dissection of fat phobia. So again, I highly, highly recommend You Have the Right to Remain Fat by Virgie Tovar. The next book on my list is What We Don't Talk About When We Talk About Fat by Aubrey Gordon. Aubrey Gordon is known online as Your Fat Friend, and at this point is maybe even more famous as the co-host of Maintenance Phase, which is a podcast that breaks down problematic health trends and diets. This was Aubrey's first book, I believe, and it really breaks down the conversation around obesity, weight loss, and the health implications of being fat. So Virgie's book gets a little bit into that, but this is a well-researched argument for why fatness is not the synonym for health that many people claim. She uncovers the racist history of BMI. She talks about the awful realities of weight loss shows, and she weaves in her own personal experience along the way. Aubrey has also written another book called You Just Need to Lose Weight and 19 Other Myths About Fat People, which is a little shorter and less memoir focused. So I think that what we don't talk about when we talk about fat is my preferred read. But if you want something that's more about like how to rebut people's arguments about fatness, I highly recommend You Just Need to Lose Weight by Aubrey Gordon. Next up is another amazing book and workbook, so 2-in-1 recommendation here. That is The Body Is Not an Apology, The Power of Radical Self-Love by Sonya Renee Taylor. Sonya Renee Taylor is an extraordinary writer and activist. She's been featured in all sorts of places: HBO, MTV, NPR, New York Times, Huffington Post, USA Today. She is often interviewed about radical self-love and body acceptance. And while this book does certainly include that intersectional analysis of why diet culture is so problematic, it also goes beyond that into how to cultivate a self-love practice. I really appreciate how Sonya Renee Taylor insists that we all deserve to and can love ourselves. And she does that from her positioning as a Black woman in a world that is constantly oppressing and denying her. I love the claim she makes at the very end of the book where she writes, "Liberation is the opportunity for every human, no matter their body, to have unobstructed access to their highest self, for every human to live in radical self-love." That's what I want for all of us. That's why I fight for liberation. And I do highly recommend The Body Is Not an Apology by Sonya Renee Taylor. And if you do personally struggle with radical self-love, with releasing shame and appreciating yourself, with mindset work and embodied practices, the workbook that goes along with this is also fantastic. It's called the Your Body Is Not an Apology workbook. You can get them both together, and they really are this like beautiful, accessible curriculum for breaking up with diet culture and loving yourself on the other side of that. And finally, the last book on this list is the one I've gotten most recently because I actually met the author on a virtual networking call a few months ago. And that is Chrissy King's book, The Body Liberation Project: How Understanding Racism and Diet Culture Helps Cultivate Joy and Build Collective Freedom. I love the synopsis of this, so let me read it to you from the first pages. When Chrissy King first joined a gym, she had one goal in mind: to get skinny. In pursuit of this goal, she fell into the all-too-common cycle of not enoughness. No matter what she achieved, there was always something she felt she needed to change about her body, her appearance, herself. This made her realize the most liberating truth of all. She was not the problem. Diet and fitness industries rooted in white supremacy were the problem. Eurocentric and carefully manufactured beauty standards were the problem. Discourses telling her that her happiness was directly tied to her physical appearance were the problem. So she created an actionable method to redefine the relationship we have with our bodies, thereby achieving a sense of self-worth that is completely separate from how we look. Chrissy's journey is so inspiring, and I'm really glad that she shares it, particularly from this experience of joining the gym to get skinny, which is something that I did so many times in my life. But also she weaves in her experience as a Black woman in the Midwest to show the ways that Eurocentric beauty standards are harmful to everyone, but especially to Black women. I learned so much from this book, and I really appreciated how it wove reflection questions and practical advice into the text. It makes it just feel so connective, like you're talking to a really wise friend. And that is why I definitely recommend The Body Liberation Project by Chrissy King. And that's my list, friends, of our 5 books to help you break up with diet culture. We started with You Have the Right to Remain Fat by Virgie Tovar. This is what I recommend if you want an empowering manifesto for elucidating the harms of diet culture and reclaiming your relationship with your body. After that, I talked about What We Don't Talk About When We Talk About Fat by Aubrey Gordon. This is definitely the read for our research-loving friends who really want a breakdown of the problems with the discourse around obesity and why body weight is not synonymous with health. For you, I recommend What We Don't Talk About When We Talk About Fat by Aubrey Gordon. If you want to cultivate a self-love practice on the other side of breaking up with diet culture, I recommend The Body Is Not an Apology, The Power of Radical Self-Love by Sonia Renee Taylor, as well as the workbook that goes along with it. And if you want to just have a nice book-length chat with a friend who really understands how racism and diet culture are getting us all down, I recommend The Body Liberation Project by Chrissy King. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Pleasure Reading, and I truly do hope that these books will help you reimagine your relationship with your body as we enter this sticky, sweaty season of summer in the US and the Northern Hemisphere. All of the books in this episode are linked in the show notes, and if you make a purchase through those links, I will receive a small affiliate payment that I take as thank you for the book rec. As always, I am so grateful that you tuned in, and until next time, cheers to your next best book.